Of all the confounding results in this past election, perhaps the strangest phenomenon was the surprising number of people who voted for Democrats down ballot and then checked off Donald Trump for president. That was the case in New York's 14th district. A number of voters cast their ballot for both Trump and one of the House's most progressive Democrats, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, better known as AOC. And while the Democratic Party is still reeling from the results, Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez is doing something.
The establishment is still in meltdown trying to figure out how they lost to Trump. And this Joy Reid interview just exposed everything. We're not just talking about random voters here. We're talking about AOC's own district choosing Trump over Kamala. But watch how Joy Reid loses it when AOC tells some uncomfortable truths about why Democrats keep failing working people. Let's break this down.
A lot of the D.C. folks aren't doing, which is talking to social media and actually talking to voters to figure out why this happened.
If you voted for Donald Trump and me, or if you voted for Donald Trump and voted Democratic down ballot, I would really love to hear from you. This is not a place of judgment. I'm not gonna put your stuff on blast or anything like that or dunk on it. That's genuinely not the intent here. I actually want to learn from you. I want to hear what you were thinking, and I just want to hear from you.
Joining me now is the aforementioned Democratic Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York. Okay, AOC, what'd they say?
I mean, there's a lot of different things that we saw. I think there's a lot of people. First of all, it's important to note that Democrats, oftentimes when we lose elections, we think that we lost people to Trump.
Hold up! Did you catch what AOC just admitted? The Democrat establishment's been lying to you about losing to Trump. They're not losing to Trump. They're losing to the couch. People aren't switching sides. They're checking out completely. And why? Because they're tired of both parties playing these games. But here's what's wild. Instead of fixing the system, they're just finding new ways to blame voters. Hell no! Keep watching because this pattern gets even crazier. And
that is true in circumstances, but they don't look enough at the fact that we also lost people to the couch. Mm-hmm. We have two people that we're running against. So a lot of people say, this is why I voted for you and Trump. And some people say this is why I didn't vote or didn't vote top of the ticket.
Right. Skip the top of the ticket, which, by the way, there's been a lot of paranoia about the fact that Democrats were able to win statewide in some places while Kamala Harris lost. And I keep trying to tell people there are voters who go in and either just vote the top, Trump voters who will say, I just want Trump and don't care about Republicans, and the reverse, who say, I'm not voting top of the ticket, but I'll vote everybody else.
Right, right. And I think we saw some of that happen as well. But when it comes to people who split their ticket, I think a lot of people cited several different things. One is there is universal frustration in this country, much of it, I actually think, justified, that is raging at a political establishment.
This right here is the smoking gun. AOC just admitted the entire game. There's justified rage at both parties for putting billionaires first. But watch what happens next. Instead of addressing why Democrats keep bowing to corporate interests, they'll blame messaging or disinformation. Same game, different day. The system doesn't want you connecting these dots.
That centers corporate interests, billionaires, and puts their needs ahead of the needs of working Americans. And we know that we can either channel this righteous rage, because there are people whose SNAP was cut off, their child tax credits were cut off, but they're seeing people like Elon Musk getting tax breaks and kissing up to Donald Trump in order to do so.
But they vote for them. Why vote for Elon Musk and Donald Trump?
And I think that, of course, is the question.
It makes no sense.
And I think part of it has to do with the fact that, and I think we're still in a process of going through the data. It's important to say that.
Yes.
And I actually think that it's important to say that the people who are rushing to say, let me give you my grand theory of what's going on right now.
The problem is you went too woke. Sorry, Kamala Harris was running with Liz Cheney at her side. She wasn't going, quote unquote, woke.
If we had an election on November 5th and November 6th, you've got an answer.
Right.
Don't listen to those people.
I agreed.
Do not listen to those people.
Co-signed.
So I want to say that we should all have the humility of saying this is an ongoing learning process. However, there is something to be said about it doesn't matter that he's lying. He's saying that I'm fighting for you. In all of this debate that people are talking about with this woke thing, right?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. It's because we care about trans people, and that's why.
And by the way, only
backlash.
Donald Trump cared about trans people
Right.
because he was the one running $130 million worth of ads. The Harris campaign said nothing about this issue.
That's right. That's right. And listen, the ads, it's not to even deny the fact that these ads were effective in certain areas. What I think people are paying too much attention to is the first half of that ad, which says Kamala Harris is for they, them. Everyone's focusing on that. They're not focusing on the second half of that ad, where he said, Donald Trump is for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Democrats very often, in their messaging, they speak in terms and in concepts and not in the second person.
Pay attention to this moment. AOC is accidentally exposing how both parties manipulate you. Trump says, I care about you, while doing billionaire tax cuts. Democrats talk about concepts while taking Wall Street money. It's all theater. They're fighting over how to manipulate you instead of actually helping working people. This isn't a mistake. It's by design.
I care about you. And political races are not about one candidate versus another candidate. Too often it gets pigeonholed like that. It is a race to convince a person about who cares about you more.
Let me ask you this question, because we've been talking a lot about RFK Jr. My mind is a bit blown. I mean, we knew that Donald Trump would go wild. There's no constraints on him. He could just put all his friends in. But we're talking about RFK Jr. and the possibility of people pulling back on measles vaccines, on another pandemic happening. You're talking about Matt Gaetz. There's a 17-year-old girl out there terrified that all of her records, all of the witnesses against him in this case where she was trafficked could be in the hands of Matt Gaetz, and he could be the most powerful law enforcement official in the country in a case where the president of the United States is an adjudicated sexual abuser. If you're a sexual assault survivor, you're thinking, oh my God, this country is out to get me. They're out to get me and force me to have children by sexual assault. So the message to women has been insane, okay? And the people he's nominating are TV hosts, et cetera. Do you think the people who voted for him that you've talked to were expecting this?
No.
Or true mass deportation.
Genuinely,
yeah.
No. And it's heartbreaking, actually. It is heartbreaking. And people may want to take like a kind of vengeful stance about this, but it is genuinely heartbreaking. People need to understand that there are people, millions of people in this country, and I was one of them, where you are working 2-3 shifts a day to try to make ends meet. You're not reading the newspaper every morning.
Boom! Here's where AOC exposes the entire game without realizing it. While working Americans are grinding 3 jobs just to survive, these political elites are debating messaging strategy. They're all sitting in D.C., sipping coffee, reading newspapers, trying to figure out how to manipulate people who don't have time to see through their games. The system isn't broken. It's working exactly as designed.
Morning with a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
You're not. And it's not to say that people are uneducated or uninformed or anything like that. But like, this is real life. Yeah. This is real life. You got a baby on your hip and you've got 2-3 shifts to work in that day and you're just trying to make things work and you have such an overwhelm of information. And I actually think something that is different about this moment than I saw, whether it was 2020 or after 2016, is that almost like right the day after, people immediately were coming to me and saying, he's not actually going to do that, right? And it's important to say, people may often say, he said he was going to do this. It was right here on the campaign trail. If you actually listen to him, if you listen to Donald Trump's acceptance speech, when he talked about immigration, he talked about legal pathways first.
Yeah. Yeah, he didn't say he was going to do.
He didn't lead with mass deportation.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to hold you. We're going to hold you over if you don't mind. We're going to hold for one more. We're going to take a quick break, pay for all of this, and then when we come back, AOC will still be right here with me. Stay right there. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is back with me. We were talking a little bit about the shock that people are feeling about not really thinking Donald Trump was going to do the things he was doing. Let's talk about mass deportation. Do you think the 55% of Latino men, the 40-some-odd% of Latinas thought he was really going to do it?
No, I think what is interesting, kind of what we were discussing earlier, is that one of the things that I learned when I was asking about people who voted for Donald Trump and me, I asked them, where do you get your news from? How do you take in information, right? Yeah. And one of the things that they said is that one of their primary trusted sources of information was, they said you, as in me.
Yeah.
That means that they rely on me as their elected official for information directly. It also means that they are listening to him directly for his information. And as we said earlier, in Donald Trump's victory speech, he said that when he talked about immigration, the first thing that he talked about was legal pathways. He talked about mass deportation afterwards. And so I think people who believe what he says, when he says we're only going after criminals, they think that he's going after somebody else. Meanwhile, the Republican Party, the Trump campaign, people like Stephen Miller, they believe that being undocumented means you are a criminal.
Right. And they don't understand that. I want to talk about a couple of the picks that, as you said, people may not have saw coming. Matt Gaetz, you've had to deal with him as a member of Congress. How concerned are you about him being Attorney General?
I think right now the mood on the Hill, there's a lot of Republican uproar about it. I find it interesting, too. It's important to note that Matt Gaetz won general election to the 119th Congress.
What we just witnessed isn't just about AOC or Trump. It's about exposing how the entire political system works to keep working people confused and divided. They're not public servants anymore. They're professional manipulators, helping elites get richer while real Americans work 3 jobs just to survive. That's why independent media matters. If you're tired of being manipulated by both parties, smash that subscribe button right now. We're going to keep exposing these political games every single week. Drop exposed in the comments if you're done with establishment politics from both sides. Stay sharp, stay angry, peace out,